Aloha, everyone, to a new episode of Sacred Convos. We missed you guys. I personally have been a bit ill-struck and needed to take a time off from any action, any doing, and was a lot in patience and in receiving and in mute mode, which was really, really good. And yeah, Livia, what have you been up to?
Oh my God, I've missed this conversation a lot, but I have also been in a kind of crazy personal situation with, building an extension here and a lot of mess. So I had to step back a little bit on my projects and things. But I'm so glad we can make it today and explore new things.
Me too, big time, big time. Before we dive into our deep convos, and guys, whoever is watching, and thank you for that, by the way, just know that this is completely authentic. Usually we just pick one theme and then we freestyle. We don't know where this conversation is gonna go. It's a very unique signature of the dynamic that we co-create as we go along. And I'm excited to see where this conversation is enlightening, inspiring, awakening us for today, and also granting space for just sharing, just really holding space for each other and being. Yeah.
I also love this free flow because it's like it allows more space for authenticity to come out, and it kind of takes it where it wants to. Sacred Convos has its own energy and consciousness, so it's just guiding us where it wants and what needs to be shared. So that's where we are.
That's amazing. In regard to political, sociological, economical matters and matters of consciousness that are affecting all of us right now, that have been affecting all of us, even though we were not aware of it, we would like to dedicate today's episode to the matters of the dark night of the soul. And for all of you who yet may not be acquainted with that, we will share with you how we understand Joseph Campbell's anatomy of the hero's journey. And this is just an open platform for anybody who's willing to approach life without necessarily the fear of the unknown, but geared up with grace and self-trust to understand that what is coming, that what we are co-creating right now, may not ever have been there before in our understanding of human history, but it doesn't mean that we have to give up. And so I'm just, before we deeply dive in, calling all of you to take whatever's resonating with you. Lydia is an expert in saying that. She's always emphasizing that. And Lydia, thank you for that. Always to remember people, hey, you don't have to agree with me 100%, but if something is resonating and sparking an interest or curiosity within you, take it with you and so be it. Yeah. So,
and also
Lydia, my love,
leave space. Sometimes I've found myself, listening to someone or to something, and for some reason, maybe I'm not in my most aligned place or whatever, and I am very fast to, block something and say, no, I don't resonate with this, or that's not for me. So I love this question. How can this work for me? Or what can this teach me today? Or what can I take out of this, even if I don't agree or that doesn't resonate? Is there something that I can just extract from that maybe for today can help me with some situation or in the next few days or months or whatever? So I think we can learn from everything, the most difficult and the most beautiful, according to our own interpretation situations. So asking the question, how can this serve me today, or how can this work for me? It's always beneficial.
Beautiful. And yeah, I'm ready to dive into the concept of the hero's journey. Do you wanna take the lead?
Well, before we go to that, I would like to share two things that have excited me lately because I think we are so bombarded with, difficult things that are going on right now in the planet, which indeed are going on, but there are also beautiful things going on. So I always like to, put some resonance there for people and for myself. For we all need that. So two things that have excited me lately so much is that both in the beach of Acapulco in Mexico and the beach of California, there has been glowing phytoplankton. And for me, that's really amazing to see. For me, it's like a landscape of pure magic. I was watching a video of dolphins in California just swimming in the glowing plankton, and I felt like I'm teletransported in the avatar world, wherever you touch something is glowing. And I think Mama Gaia is healing, and in Acapulco they have not seen that glow for I don't even know since when. It's a heavily polluted place because of all the hotels and all the tourism. In California also, I don't know exactly when it was the last time they had it, but in Mexico for sure it has been a very long time. So I find that very exciting that Earth is having a break from us, from one side of humanity that is the virus. We also have a divine side that we can make this place the most beautiful heaven and the most beautiful temple. But we have been mistreating this beautiful spaceship that we have been given. So I am grateful that she's taking a break and she's being restored to her original magic.
That is indeed such great news. Such great news. And as a surfer myself, um, the video that, oh my God, it just made me cry because I was touched with a similar awe and magic. Was I saw this video of a surfer, and it was a woman surfer, and she was just catching a wave, and every time there was friction or a movement, a touch of her and the waters, there was this, yeah, beautiful fluorescent blue light emerging. And I could really feel that. That's at least how I, in my state of consciousness, interpreted it. Next to the scientific aspect was, yes, the water that is a living entity is now speaking to us in richer colors. And to what you said earlier, that Pachamama, the great mother, Gaia, call it however you want, this planet Earth, um, is taking a break from us. This hasn't been going on for more than, what, 1 or 2 months? This change of our human interaction behavior in regard to nature? Imagine what this would do, where we would be in a year from now, if we wouldn't necessarily go back to the same normal, but if we were to take our learned lessons and move forward in a thriving coexistence with her who is allowing us to be with her right now. I mean, the magic that will show up there, I don't think we can even fathom it yet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. We cannot imagine, I think. And that also gets us back to the hero's journey, where there is this point, of what is called the dark night of the soul that we will both share and explain our perception. But basically, after that crisis situation, which is what we're going through, there needs to be established a new cycle. And this hero's journey is repeated in our own life several times, in humanity overall several times. It's not something that we go one time and, we have finished. And from quantum physics to all levels of science to, micro scale, macro scale, everything is cycles, be in between cycles, inside other cycles. So it's all about cycles. I feel that it's really important that we understand in our mental level, but we also feel this power of cycles, that everything is rotating in its own cycle and there is a greater and greater cycle. So that has to do with a lot of cycles, but they all have this common structure, which is imprinted through Joseph Campbell's work, The Hero's Journey. So would you like to share your perspective on that? I would love to know
Yeah,
about
glad.
it.
A big part of the anatomy of my coaching is based on that structure. It's because the hardwired by our brains have been basically a beautiful reflection of that cyclical pattern that's, yeah, as you said, so beautifully spins around eons of our human existence. Basically, you take one role, a figure, a person, an entity that is at a given state, a state that is usually their known, their familiar environment, the way they know how to go on about things. And the next step in that graph, and the graph is literally indeed a circle, it's not a linear graph. What happens is that main character is being called to step out of the known into the unknown. Usually what happens is there is a refusal of the call. There is an unwillingness to say, okay, I'm really gonna leave everything here that I got built up that creates beautiful comfort and ease. But usually when that first call happens, no matter how often we refuse it, the voice of the calling will only become louder. What does that mean in our everyday life? That usually when, say, we experienced or designed a life that is not necessarily for our greatest good, then every now and then our body shows us with symptoms of, hey dude, you might want to reconsider that decision, or you might want to reconsider the belief system you build around a certain situation. And the more we refuse, the bigger must the entity or the notion of the call become for us to really listen to it, to shake us up. And usually in our everyday life, that means like a state of out of the ease, like a disease needing to emerge in our body to really ring the alarm. And then we say, oh, okay, I don't want it to be any worse. Let me get into that. Life, body, soul, what are you actually trying to tell me here? And usually when when we don't come from polarity thinking, but more from an aspect of having a higher self, having a soul that is coming here to experience, and through experience to create expansion of the self, expansion of our awareness, then there is no lesser value in experiencing something negative as long as it serves the evolution of your being. So if we're then really venturing out of our normal, then what happens is, after the step of the refusal of the call, to truly say yes to the new adventure, stepping into the first unknown, there is allies coming our way. That could be a mentor, that could be something, online that you discovered, like a great blog of beautiful information. It could be a new method in enriching your life. It could be anything. Anything that aids your next passage towards the next level of your life. And then there is a certain threshold, and that threshold marks the one fourth, the 1/4 of that whole journey. And that threshold is the place of no return. Because once we already became aware that there is an actual need to change, even if we were to force someone to go back where we came from, where we were initially, we know too much, we know better than to go back. So we cannot return because we've already been enriched with the notion of, okay, you got to wake up, body. There's a new notion for your being coming along. You cannot ignore the truth. So once we step further that threshold, this is then where certain enemies or certain notions that are triggering you come along, that maybe in different sagas or mythological stories, or even in Hollywood films, are usually the bad guy. Are usually, if you have it in Matrix, the guy that is investigate. What is he, my love?
The agent.
In the yes, the agent. The agent was needed though. I'm speaking now in Matrix terminology, for Neo to understand who he is. Okay? So both of them are super valuable for the actual experience that both are going to have in that main theme. And then is when you hit the real ordeal. This is the AKA dark night of the soul. Many of you might have experienced the dark night of the soul. My experience was it was a very intense challenge of my perception. My soul, my high self, chose a path where I was disrupted from my classical everyday ongoing in life to a degree where what I perceived and what others in my environment perceived were two different things. And that led to a huge journey across institutionalization in various psychiatric wards, heavy inducing of drugs. They call it neurological supporters. They, the doctors. It was 4 years of my life where nothing that I knew was ever the same before. My identity was completely dissolving. It was as if I was born to a degree of a lot of darkness for me to become aware again what light means. But I had to go through that. And while I was in that, there were moments when I wanted to end my life. There were moments where I really didn't feel any point of going forward. I think the only thing that really stopped me was the notion of, oh my God, what would I think my parents wouldn't survive that. So that was my, pulling the brake. But there were a lot of times while I was in it where I couldn't breathe anymore. I was exhausted. And however, now looking back, similar as what Steve Jobs said, whenever you look back, you are able to connect the dots. Retrospectively, everything makes sense. But when you just look forward, some things that come towards you, they don't make sense yet because sometimes we lack of seeing the greater picture. And I know now that path, my dark night of the soul, where I was stripped away of any safety, of any clarity, of any stable health, whether it was mental health or physical health, was my choice of my higher self of going through so that I would start to become aware of my actual healing abilities, which will then later on have led me to the path of becoming a healer and a consciousness coach. It's become because I was an expert in not having any of that. And so that was my dark night of the soul. Before we continue to describe the graph, I would like Lydia, for you, because I took so much time, I'm sorry, for you to share with me, what was your dark night of the soul?
Thank you for your sharing. I love the first part where you dove in the hero's journey and all this perception of yours for the dark night. I felt it so powerful. And also your personal journey. I think it's such an empowering story that you have there. And I think many people or most people have one. And I truly believe that in every dark night of the soul, there is always a huge gift and a huge reboot for us to begin a new cycle. And I would like to explain that further, but going back to your question, I had also a major dark night of the soul where I had to move from a country, and that cost me a lot because I didn't want to go. So suddenly I lost, the house that I had that I loved. I lost the life that I loved there. I lost my job there. I had to quit, which was very painful. And then a series of things happened from, my dog died within 3 weeks that I returned. My closest aunt died. My house was almost burned by fire. it was like, what is going on? And then from there, my longest relationship dissolved, unfortunately, for that time. I lost a series of allies. I mean, it was so painful. And all this emotional stress led me to a severe physical and emotional issue that resulted in an autoimmune disease. So there was I, you know, with doing a job that I didn't like, having the money that I want to do anything, but having no life inside of me. I never remember myself being so lost, not knowing what to do and why I'm here, which is something that I always felt strong inside of me. And I had completely lost myself. And I was also struggling a lot physically because I had pain, I had zero energy. I was like with GI problems, you know, I couldn't eat things. It was horrible. I was just a young woman, you know, that we are supposed to be in the best of our age at that time. It was more than 10 years ago. I could really not function as a basic human being. So I was like, of course, you know, kind of in a victim mode, like, why is this happening to me? You know, why do I have to suffer so much? But now looking back to that, it was such a huge wake-up call. It pushed me to the limit to go deeper and start researching how, for example, the house that I had just moved in that was completely new, with all the new materials that were off-gassing, I started learning and doing trainings about that and how that can affect different parts of the body. And everything started to make sense. So I started making changes in my house, you know, removing things that were toxic, putting things that have to do with, you know, harmonizing radiations, and changing my bed and my bed mattress, which was full of metal. And then I ended up testing myself over my bed and looking that I have so much electricity going through me because of the metal in the bed. So I was just shocked that I was sleeping there and I couldn't sleep in my bed. So I thought there was something wrong with me. So it led me in a series of so much, like uncovering so much truth, and eventually just putting me back on my path, which was eventually, you know, being a holistic architect on one side, and, you know, creating spaces for health and wellness and well-being, and also, you know, healing myself through natural herbs, supplements, nutrition, and all sorts of tools that have to do with, you know, how to heal yourself emotionally. And the whole thing just completely transformed my life. I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you, doing what we're doing, if I hadn't gone through that. So, and I know you wouldn't be either, because these experiences, which is what I wanted to link it with, apart from the hero's journey according to Joseph Campbell, for example, in numerology, the dark night of the soul is number 9. And we all have like 9-year cycles. And number 9 is linked to 2 major things: an incredible crisis that makes you question every choice you have in your life, or many choices, and creates a lot of situations where the unhealthy things start getting dissolved and just break out of nothing. And the other thing is immense spiritual awakening. So the same number in the same year that we all go through these 9-year cycles has both options. And sometimes we need to go first to the one and then move to the other. You know, first we need to question our choices and the way we live and the way we do things, or relationships, or our food, or whatever that is. And then suddenly we go to this deep spiritual experience and awakening. And also in Jodorowsky's work with the Tarot de Marseille, which is one of my favorites to study, because I can tell you there's so much wisdom and science in there you cannot imagine. It's not a woo thing. It's not like a new age thing by far. So I will quote that because I love to see it from all perspectives. What?
Guys, can we all agree that Lydia is like an encyclopedia of knowledge? This moment, I
No.
feel like I'm speaking with the live internet. Any subject I tap on, it's like this volume of knowledge hitting me. I'm like, wow, I'm an awe, girl. Please, amazing.
So the card that has to do with exactly that is called the Hermit. And by chance is card number 9 in the Tarot de Marseille. So Jodorowsky says about this card that there is a figure of a guy that is going backwards to the future. So what he says about that is that is a card of immense crisis. It's a card that puts you in retrospect to look back in yourself, in your life, in what you're living. And it's a card to question all these choices. And it's a card to go backwards to the future, towards the unknown. That's why the card is backwards, because you cannot look what is next. You just have to trust and jump into the unknown, which is the next card, number 10, which is basically signifying a new cycle. So I think that also applies to us globally right now, that, you know, there is so much, in some levels, in some physical levels at least, uncertainty and insecurity and emotional, you know, stress and all these things, and what's going to happen. I mean, I also have that, like, what's going to happen, you know, this level of my being is like very agitated. What's going to happen? You know, how are we going to go through this? But it is the time to go back within and question everything, because a new cycle is going to start. And in order for that new cycle with number 1 to 9 cycle to start, we have to let go of whatever doesn't serve us anymore. And I think, you know, this situation that we're going through, no matter if it's, you know, artificially created or naturally created, it doesn't matter. But it is pushing us to let go of what doesn't serve us right now in the world.
And that touches exactly to my initial willingness and intention to tap today with you, for anybody who is interested and is enriched with that, to actually explore the quality, the values that can be found in experiencing the dark night of the soul, is because it is a collective aspect right now. I did, however, realize that most of the people I'm conversing with right now, that in their own lives have consciously or now became aware that they have indeed experienced a unique dark night of a soul, at least one, they are not that shook by what is going on right now, because they have experienced how it is if nothing is stable, if nothing is safe, if everything is unknown, if you are being literally ripped out of your usual environment and comfort, and thus granted the notion of trusting in oneself, in the notion of not having resources, but becoming resourceful. And I don't necessarily believe that, let it be artificially or non-artificially, that very bacteria created. What we are facing right now is the pivotal moment that humanity, especially in the Western world, we all needed to go through. If it weren't for that bacteria, it would have been for a lot of other reasons. Right now, what I perceive is there are so many realities coexisting. The one that sits at home, watches television, and having a certain understanding of the world will just as much receive respect from me for his very own perceived reality as the person who sits in a cave distancing, being in the actual hermit mode, distancing him or herself from everything, having a very different reality. There are so many parallel realities happening right now. And I feel it's important for all of us to, first of all, acknowledge that and be compassionate with every single stand of consciousness and not judge it, really not judge it. I did perceive myself sometimes in the past month voicing judgment over people who chose to live with fear. I said, Alexandra, you have no right to do that. You don't know their story. You don't know if their higher self chose to incarnate in this lifetime, going through these matters, also experiencing fear, just for the sake of experiencing fear. So who are you to devalidify that as an actual value of an experience? But also what happens simultaneously is that, to my understanding and my research, coming now not necessarily from a only esoteric and spiritual view, but also from a scientific view, it takes at least 1/3 of a population to initiate change. We do see change every single day, some in the favor for the greater good, some not, but change does happen. We are all co-creating this world as we go along, if we know it or not, whether we are aware of it or not. But the more we become aware of how our body, mind, soul expressions, how our thoughts, our fears and hopes are affecting the actual fabric that we call coexistence, I don't know how many of us would actually dare to have a negative thought. And that doesn't necessarily mean that one should not look into the various ocean of influx of information that is being offered to us right now from many different outlets, but to practice discernment and to understand that you as you're listening to us right now, that you chose to tap onto that video that two people co-created across oceans, just by pressing play on this video and engaging passively in this conversation, you actively engage in anything you send out into the world, whether you know it or not. But just by sitting, I'm being literal right now, and I know a lot of people ridicule me for that. That's okay. But even from just sitting on the sofa, practicing your mantras, cleansing your energy field, doing your meditation, anything that allows you to thrive above to the level where you feel the interconnectivity with all that is, to not feel separated from the world, but to feel connected to all that is, you have an immense positive impact on the world. So just to round it up, I understand it takes discernment. I understand that many people might get worried of the unknown, but this is just my sharing for today. We can get worried, or we can understand that as we go along, we are all being called to co-create the new normal.
Wow, so beautiful. Thank you for that. I can share also the same experience here, that because I have kind of different views from a lot of people on what's going on right now, I caught myself a few times criticizing people, or even making fun of people, and I immediately snap out of it. First of all, because that's not serving anyone, it's not helping anyone. And if I think these people are not where they should be according to my own perception, and if I want them to, if I want to really help them, like judging them doesn't help anyone. So that's the first part. And the second part is, I truly feel that now more than ever, we need compassion. And why is that? Because one of the struggles of us human beings, um, both internally and also externally, is unification. And what do I mean by that? We are 30 trillion cells in this body. So imagine if these cells in between them start a war. They start judging each other. Oh, you stomach cell, why you do this way? And you brain cell, I don't like how you look. Imagine what will happen in our body. Our body will collapse. So the earth is the same. We are a body that is living on the surface of the earth called humanity. And we are 7 billion people. And the reason we have all these horrible outcomes we have on the planet, one of them at least, major one, is because we're doing that all the time. And what does that create? It creates fragmentation. We can never be whole again if we point fingers and we judge and criticize people. So the same happens inside of us, you know. We have different beings living inside of us. We all have an inner judge. We have a compassionate woman. We have an action guy. We have different personalities and beings inside of us. And unless we stop pointing fingers inside of us of what we're doing, we cannot be healthy, happy, we cannot thrive, and most important of all, we cannot fulfill our mission and the reason why we're here for. So when we see ourselves doing that externally, we need to realize that also this holographically is represented inside of us, that we need to unify our parts and share love between our parts. And if one part doesn't like the other, it's okay. Okay, I'll show you a better way, but there is no judgment, there is no criticism. Let's help all of us improve instead of, you know, create borders and limits and countries, you know, in a planet that doesn't have any limits and borders. And I truly believe what you said that is so important for our times, which is that we have these two options. One is to worry, and it's perfectly fine to worry, and it's okay to have fear, but you have a choice. You can just stay in your fear and just continue feeding that reality, or you can acknowledge your fear, accept it, embrace it like a little child, and move on to that, from that to another phase, which is exactly what you said. We are co-creating our reality. And how do we know that? All the work of Nassim Haramein, unified physics, that with every experiment done is more proven in literal physical things, not just theoretical, is exactly that, that we send out information and information comes back to us as the reality. So we are all feeding a reality and then we are receiving that reality. So the question is, what reality do we want to wake up to tomorrow? What reality are we feeding today? There was a huge video by Dr. Bruce Lipton, who is a cell biologist, and Dr. Rashid Buttar, who are both doctors, about please spend time every day envisioning the planet you want to live in. And I found that so amazing. At least, you know, if you spend half of the day worrying, spend the rest half of the day envisioning a healthy human being, a healthy humanity, a happy humanity, an earth with pure waters running everywhere, with animals, you know, free to live their life they're meant to, with trees everywhere. We have the power to create that. That's, for me, the most important message for everyone of us listening today and wanting to live another reality.
Thank you. I always love it when I tap in an intuitive mode and you know, you just boost that and back it up with scientific proof. I love that. I love that. It's truly meaningful. Thank you so much. I did not know that Dr. Bruce Lipton is doing that, but it doesn't surprise me, but I'm very grateful for that. Very grateful. So that goes back to me, I'm being inclined to tap once more into the state where we are right now in. Usually we as a human being are being called for action when we are affected by something. And that's the beauty of this microbe. No matter how truly detrimental it is to health or not, but the buzz that this microbe created anyhow is that it's equivocal across any type of presumed classes of people, sociological realms. So what is happening indirectly, since we all feel we are affected by this, all of a sudden we're all focusing to one certain thing. And then ask me again if change is not possible on a collective. You see that change is not possible. Might not be the change that you wanted, but here's a proof change is possible. But just that microbe, just that whole narrative of the microbe and the health aspects of that, just that for a moment left aside. So many of us in the past decade, a lot, we felt that we were exhausted by our jobs. We're pacing all along just to make ends meet. Would feel that the divide of financial inequality was widening and widening. The notion of I don't have enough, or I want that and I want it now, that gratification moment, the instant gratification. I feel lonely, I'm gonna have my fuck body buzzing in right now, even if this morning I did not know about this person but found him in social media. Or I'm hungry, let me call a delivery and get my food delivered. Or anything that is, that was feeding that notion of instant gratification. At the same time, it came, or it fed into the aspect of not having or not being enough. And that comes, I feel, from that notion of separation that you called, that fragmentation that you called earlier. When do I feel I don't have enough necessarily? When I'm in comparison mode. I have this magnificent boat here, I'm in open waters, and there comes a yacht along. Why don't I have that yacht? That person must have had a better life than me. What happens? I'm not anymore even experiencing the beautiful splash of the sprinkling salty water in my face. I'm focusing on what I have not and how to attain that other life. So the moment I'm doing that, I'm not even here right now. I'm pacing after an illusion of happiness, an illusion of a better life. Okay, I'm talking about the people who are already experiencing a life that is above the basic needs, where you have your basic needs met. Okay? And for anybody to feel at some point I have more than the other one, so I'm better, and whatever the ego makes you feel, believe. So all of a sudden, the compassion mode went down. And that gratification mode, I have more, I am thus better, became bigger. So we were feeding constantly into that separation mode. And so I feel what we're truly facing right now is not just the heralding of the narrative of something that would destroy our health, but is to actually own the responsibility of how we have led this world to be in the state that it is because of our choices, because of our belief systems, because of our notion of wanting more and more and more and more in the past decades. And that has also to do a lot with technology. To my research, and this is not any research I've done in an official academic study, but from independent researchers, archaeologists, historians across the world, there have been other civilizations far more advanced than our current state of humanity, way before our official timeline of human existence has started. Across the world, across deserts, you can still find traces of uranium where nothing can grow. We are continuously excavating ornaments and tools that we have no understanding how they were being built. That shows to me that right now we're being called forth to become so very aware of how our choices are truly impacting the collective in every regard, especially in the technological regard. The past years, the technology grew to an extent that our grandfathers couldn't have even imagined. But the critical question I'm posing today is the following. Have we internally, have we ethically progressed to the same degree as our technological evolution? Or are we on the verge of repeating a very old pattern of destroying ourselves? So I hope that sometime in the future we can look back to this very collective dark night of the soul and saying, oh my God, thank you health, thank you Mother Earth, thank you environment, thank you life for sharing us the gem of collective reflection of our very selves, of redesigning everyday behavior and choices so we could have grown and matured as a collective group rather than destroying ourselves.
Wow, beautifully said. Just because you like the science so much, I will drop in a little bit of science there. There is research, scientific research, that has found out something called negativity bias, which is that our brain has this function that it easily remembers all the negative things or focuses on the negative things. So we need to bring back a higher level of consciousness to not allow our brain to take over us, but the opposite, and refine it and retune it to the things we already have. And we all have something to be grateful. At least the people that we have our basic needs covered, as you're saying. So just look around you today. Look at your home. Look at the people that are around you. Look like what is just in front of you. The view you have out of your window, there are so many things. And for new things to come to us, we need to give thanks first for the things we have. Otherwise, we end up being greedy, and nature doesn't like that. So let's first be aware about this negativity bias, because many people, we just run on automatic and we're not even aware of that. And I used to be like that a lot. Like, I wouldn't realize how much my brain was hooked into negative thoughts and what I'm missing all the time. I don't have this, I don't have that, and that feeds in more and more negativity. And we make 80,000 thoughts every day. So imagine the power of, as research says, more than 90% of these 80,000 thoughts is negative. What are you feeding into this quantum loop that Nassim Haramein has discovered? What are you feeding? Pure negativity. Well, that's not going to help change anything for the better, for our own private lives and for humanity and the planet Earth as a whole. So I think that's really important that we realize it. And on that, I would like to touch on, this story of the hero's journey, because I truly believe, for everybody that has not read the book, please read the book if it resonates with you, of course. But why I think it's a really crucial book
watch the video. Or there's also video. If you don't feel like reading a book, there's a video exactly dissecting all the anatomy on Vimeo,
Sure.
on the same title.
Sure, we can put the link below, but for any of you that want to go deeper, I will really recommend the book by Joseph Campbell. So why I think this book is crucial for especially times of dark night of the soul, which all heroes face if we go back to Greek mythology, to mythology around the world, for all the, you know, horrible things that have happened in the planet, and people that stood up for it and fought for it, to close a cycle of destruction and end a cycle that is not helpful for the world. I feel that this is once more what we are asked to be. We are asked to be heroes in this time. And by heroes, I don't mean that you have to go out there and fight. I don't mean in that aspect. I mean, you can start doing small things. You can start being a hero when you're bombarded with all this negativity, but you choose to shift your mind, focusing on gratitude and focusing on envisioning the world you want to live in tomorrow. That's a hero today. And of course, there are bigger things. You know, people are doing philanthropic work and they're gathering money for this and that. And there are people, you know, that know the 200 scientific publications that show all the problems with 5G technology, because you mentioned that. The problem, I don't think, is technology. The problem is we don't have consciousness in our technology. So we create technology just for money, and that doesn't serve us. So if you're out there and you feel that doesn't serve you, please do your research, decide what you want, and there are people doing activism out there. You can choose to be one of them or not, but the main way you can be a hero today is by doing two things. I have two tools for you today. It's the tools that I use for myself, and I try to be the best I can every day. Sometimes successful, sometimes not, but it doesn't matter. What it matters is that a hero, when he falls down, he stands up again and he continues his path. He doesn't say, oh, I fell down and it's so difficult to go up back. No, I have a mission. I'm on my mission. I fell down. It hurts. Yes, it's horrible. I'm back on it as soon as I can. So I have two tools for you today. And I think these are tools that can be like a savior for us in the times that are going through. And there are two tools that can transform us in superheroes. We need heroes right now on the planet. And you that you're listening, you can be a hero today. From the smallest to the biggest thing you can do, you can make that choice. So I count on you, okay? So the first tool is information. And what do I mean from that? Don't take one-sided information by no one, by me, by Alexandra, but no one. Start diversifying your information, and of course, practice discernment, like Alexandra said, which I think is super important. So if you're only listening to the news today, turn off that TV for a bit and go online. Go and see what different people and doctors around the world are saying. You know, check out what Bill Gates is saying. Check out, you know, David Icke, or I don't know who you feel resonance, but diversify as much as you can. And that can help shift the mind to, oh, maybe that reality that I'm fed through the media is not the only reality, as you beautifully shared, Alex, before. And that's one thing. Read more books, go online now. For example, London Real, which is a platform I really like, has tons of videos from the experts, from Bruce Lipton and Wim Hof, and all these guys are sharing 2 hours of their lives for free to give you the best information and tools. It's all there. That's part of the technology I really love, which is this side of the internet, that, you know, being on the internet in these kind of things can help us shift and be a different person by tomorrow. I have experienced that. I have experienced that after a car accident, which, Alexandra, you will remember that I almost died, and I was left alone in a room with no one there. And the first thing I did, I watched Tony Robbins' I Am Not Your Guru. And the stories and the power that came out of that, and seeing how much people have suffered, made me think, well, yeah, I had a car accident, I almost died, but I didn't, and I'm well. You know, I'm shaken, I'm really like crushed emotionally, but I'm well, and there are far worse things going on. So that day, that documentary saved me inside of an emotion when there was no one next to me to hold me. So that's the power of the internet. All the teachers are there, and you can go online one day and watch a few hours of things and just wake up from wherever you are into a new human being. So information. The second thing is consciousness at this time. I believe that more than ever we're pushed and asked to connect to the highest level of consciousness we can. So we can be the best version of ourselves. We can serve people, we can help, we can be heroes, and we can help assist in this immense change where we are called to say no to things that don't work for the best of humanity, either that's 5G or vaccines that have never been tested, or whatever new technology is coming out that is lacking of consciousness. And we need to put and pour that consciousness back in to technology, to the way our societies work, and our politics and economics work. So information and consciousness. And I would really invite everyone, no matter where you stand and no matter what your beliefs are, watch the 9 episodes of The Truth About Vaccines. If you want to know a little bit about what's really the science behind what's going on, and if there is an agenda for us close in the future that might take our rights and our freedoms, and this is the time to make that shift and decide for our future, not just for today.
Thank you so much. Thank you very, very much for that input. What do I have to share? I'm just asking myself that, just sitting here, taking this all in.
I think that we all need like an archetype that we can mimic. And I think most of us have like an idol, or even from comics or series where there is a superhero that we admire. Go check on that. Watch a small clip from that, or a comic or whatever. Me and Alex, we have a favorite superhero that is She-Ra. And what I love about this character is the balance between the masculine and the feminine she has. She's a warrior, but she's a warrior for peace. She's a warrior for light. She's a warrior for freedom. And she has this immense capacity for compassion where she cannot even harm the person that has harmed her or all her life. And I think that's what we need right now. We need spiritual warriors. What's your thought about that?
Yes, yeah. I, to my understanding, most of the people I'm conversing with right now, they all go through a certain notion of activation, especially in this time of our beings right now, that they feel, oh wow, okay, so the work I've done on myself all those years on so many levels, let it be psychological work, health work, educational work, spiritual work, and so forth, to arrive to where I am now and to continue my path was a wonderful preparation for serving humanity in this new chapter that is about to commence. And usually tapping into our superheroes when we were children, or me, like I remember my first email address was Alex, good thing I'm gonna say, it was Alex Air Jordan. I was such a basketball buff. I would wake up, my dad especially, a poor guy, every third morning at 4 a.m. to drive me to my basketball team because we're practicing many years before school. Basketball was thriving so much, my inner fuel and my joy and my excitement, that sometimes even nowadays when I work out, I'm like running, and I don't feel motivated at all. The moment I even think Michael Jordan, I have extra excess energy and I'm just like boosting, instantly grasping into a narrative that is feeding and fueling my purpose. And it's so beautiful. It's so, so, so beautiful. And thank you for mentioning the aspect of superheroes. I don't think that we are attracted to superheroes just randomly. I think there's always, like, the archetype that they represent, there is a push-pull magnetism, because this is an invitation to actually tap into your own superpowers that are often thematically the same. And what I also wanted to add earlier, when you said so beautifully about, just experience and celebrate diversity in which types of information you're allowing yourself to be infused with, I find often that taking a break from all, leaving the phone by the side, leaving the television and the internet off, the radio off, going inward, and for anybody who can, go to your balcony or to a park nearby. I went hiking yesterday. I conversed with the tree. I sat down and I asked the tree, so what do you think about what's going on right now? And I just received a lot of laughter from the tree. He said, I've been here for at least 1,000 years. I've seen you guys fall and rise and fall and rise again. I'm just here shaking my leaves with the wind. I get to see all this beautiful bay on top of the hill where I'm rooted every single day. I'm not really panicking because I have a whole different reality. And once I started connecting with the reality of the tree, asked me again how very prominent the prevailing, presuming fear was surrounding my mind. 0. Not that I want to ignore or discredit anybody else's journey or belief system, not at all. I just want to say that for me, it's very healthy every now and then to take a break from this influx of information and just make space for being. Because in the end of the day, we all, people, sooner or later, we all are going to leave this life as it is right now. We are here for a limited lifespan. Okay? Some shorter, some longer. Live. Add value to your apprehension that you are alive right now. Your next breath is the best proof of that. Let's not be a society that speaks so much about our lives whilst forgetting to live.
So
and yeah, Shira is.
Please.
I was just saying, Shira is the coolest.
Yeah, I was just about to tap into that. I really feel that it's a great time to indulge in that. And I would like to invite everyone listening, if you feel your resonance, go back to your childhood or any other time of your life or even your adult life and get in touch with that superhero archetype that you feel resonance with. Put a new desktop in your laptop or print an image or a poster, something. I have done that a lot with Shira. And that has kind of infused inside of me slowly. I mean, by far I'm not in her level, but at moments that I found myself going through something so difficult personally or in humanity in the global scale, I think inside of me, like, remember what Shira went through. What would she do? Would she just crumble on her knees and stay there crying? I don't think so. So, I have to do the same. Come on, let's pick yourself up from the floor and get going. So, and I feel that actually not just for, let's say, mythical superheroes, but many times, for example, I admire Alexandra about something that I'm not so good at, and I'm like, okay, what would Alexandra do right now? And I just channel her. And then I have different people, and someone is an expert on something else. I'm like, okay, what would she or he do? Or, my husband, he's very good at something else. I was like, okay, what would Arturo do? So we can start channeling. All this is available in this vast sea of options and possibilities, and the field that connects us all. So we can channel anything we want. So if you really want to be a superhero today, go watch like a Matrix movie or whatever you feel drawn to, print a picture, and start like having a relationship with this archetype. You cannot imagine how this simple act can just uplift you and get you back into your power. We all have immense power. We're capable of incredible things. It's only a matter of choice. There's nothing else.
So true. And our choices are often a representation of our own story, of our own narrative. And that's why the inducement of somebody else's narrative that we call forth, right? A Shira who doesn't have the limitations I think I have, thus she can achieve other things. When I channel her, all of a sudden what happens? The narrative, the way I relate to myself is changing. So the imposed limitations are just being pushed further down. And all of a sudden I have a lot of more understanding of how I can go on about things. It's usually, it all boils down to the own narrative we have started telling ourselves about ourselves.
There's also a small little thing that can add to that, and I find it very fun because I think we should, make things more fun in our lives. We all have a lot of things to not be so fun about. So you can assign this superhero side of yourself in an object. So it can be a hat or a scarf or a belt you already have, or if you want to get a new one, or a ring or a bracelet. And then you assign that property there, and every time you wear it, you get into that mentality. Trust me, it works. And why do I know it works? First of all, I've tried it myself. And second, I have all the science to back it up, which is the science of the subconscious. So your subconscious gets tuned that whenever you have that on you, you have that energy, and you will have it. Trust me. Try it out. Don't listen to what I'm saying. Give it a try and let me know how it goes.
Yes, people in the house with style and grace, as Big as Smalls would say it. No, everybody who's listening to us, I truly hope that today's exchange was meaningful for you, added a positive value for you, and any type of value. It doesn't have to be a positive one, but added something that you're taking away. And feel free to make this interactive. Feel free to drop questions or impulses that you would like for us to tap into the next sessions. You are more than invited to be part of this bigger conversation, because we are all conversing with each other the same time. We might as well just acknowledge that.
Thank you so much for another beautiful sacred convos. Thank you everyone listening, and we'll see you soon with a new episode.
Bye.
Bye.